Today is the Minority Alliance Organization meeting. The topics today will be discussing minority parenting and also the VP pick of Kamala Harris. And now when it comes to minority parenting, I think it really needs to be a change in the inside culture of our homes and the way we're investing in our children and the way we're cultivating our children to be successful later on in life. Because in many other ethnicities, they basically groom their kids for the occupation they're going to go into. They groom their kids to be successful in whatever they feel their kids have an avenue into. And as minority parents, we have been conditioned and built to, our job is to raise our kid and teach them to survive the world. The biggest lesson we teach our kids in the minority household is survive the world. There's a limit to where you shouldn't just be surviving at some point. You want to do more than survive. You want to reach a level of success. You want to see your kids reach a level of success. So for that to happen, we have to start with our mentalities and the way we're grooming our kids for success in life. And I would say if you see your kid in a certain area that they're good in, whether that's science, math, reading, writing stories, writing a book, you have to be willing to invest in that aspect of them for them later on in their own lives to reach success. And we have to really instill that within our minority households so that we can reach the next level of where we're trying to go in this next wave. And Mark, I just want to ask you, personally, on the aspect of minority parenting, what are some ways that we can do these things to give our kids a leg up in life?
So, to me, the first barrier that kind of needs to be broken there is a psychological one. It's about the mentality and breaking cycles. There are all sorts of different cycles that people can find themselves stuck in. They can find themselves stuck in cycles of abuse. They can find themselves stuck in cycles of hopelessness. And one of the biggest problems that we see in the minority community, in particular for Black and Brown communities, is a mentality of a parent doing what they got to do to survive, and therefore not having not necessarily the mental toughness, but the mental attunement. Like, it's not tuned towards investing in the child's future like that, of recognizing specific talents, grooming those talents, being able to invest in those talents, both from a time standpoint, which is the most important, and then from a financial standpoint of being able to have them in a school that can actually nurture those abilities, that can actually move them along and to be able to move if it doesn't. Being able to kind of nurture those things. It kind of the same way as we do with any, I would say 95% of, our professional athletes out there. They were identified 6, 7, 8 years old, sometimes even younger than that, and then groomed for it. They played AAU ball, they played, Pop Warner football, then they played in bigger leagues as they got older. And that investment just continued. And that investment that you see athletically is not done academically. That's a mental block that is kind of missed, in those communities, where you will see that happen in other communities. A second thing is lack of organization amongst the population. So what you'll see in a lot of communities, and you'll see this in different areas, where you have communities that are taking care of a situation, where you have community funds that are, where you see an entire neighborhood that is Jewish or Asian or whatever the case may be. And there's a lot of investment in whatever it is that they're doing. There's investment business wise, and they're patronizing those businesses, and they're using those monies. There's community organizations inside that community itself that's able to kind of gather resources from within that community to be able to invest in their children, among other things. They're investing in property or investing in business, but they're also investing in their children's futures. So if one decides that they want to be a doctor, they're going to be a doctor, because there's not going to be a whole lot of roadblocks that are going to be in their way. And if there are some that pop up, that community is going to move those roadblocks. And we're not seeing that, in these Black and brown communities. I think a third issue is being able to handle the rigors and pitfalls of the uphill climb of being a minority community. You're going to have pitfalls, you're going to have disappointments and failures and things like that to move along as you go up the ladder. Being able to handle those disappointments is difficult, because we're kind of in a situation where everybody's kind of clawing and fighting for themselves. So when you're clawing and fighting for yourself, one stumble can be the end of that dream very easily, both from the standpoint of being able to continue on financially, and from the standpoint of mentally, where you almost feel like you couldn't have done it anyway. So when you reach a disappointment, it's like, well, I had no business doing it anyway. What was I thinking? And it kind of kills those types of ideas and dreams. The dreams in minority communities, in the planning and the ideas of what you want to be and what you're trying to do, even when you want to invest in your child like that, is so fragile. It can be shaken so easily. So, I think that those three pillars, kind of stand in the way for a lot of people. I think with even the best of intentions, that you have, those things that are kind of gigantic obstacles, and a lot of them are in the way that we think about it. A lot of people don't think of their kids as an investment module. That's kind of a cold and difficult way to look at it. But at the same time, if you know the rigors of what it's like to grow up as a minority and the things that are in front of you, and you realize that the time now is greater than any other time before now to be able to reach and achieve those dreams, then you do have to look at it as an investment. You have to think to yourself, when it comes to everything that you're doing with your child, investing your time, investing your money, and things like that, what are we doing? What are we putting in to help with their future, and to be able to give them those choices? And then along with choices is being able to monitor those choices, because again, there's a lot of pitfalls in front of them as well. So being able to keep them on a straight and narrow, you're going to need to be tougher. You're going to need to be a little less compromising, because that's another trait that you'll see in a lot of different communities, is an uncompromising goal of what it is that's out there for them. And if they're going to be whatever it is they're going to be, and they start heading in that direction, there's no compromise in that. There is constant understanding of what's going on with their grades, what's going on with their schooling, what's going on here, what's going on there, identifying pitfalls and moving them out the way. There has to be some of that in everything that we're doing with our children.
Yes, sir. And I would say, even more so, I have a son myself, and I would say within the last year of me building what I'm currently building myself, I started to realize the need to start investing in him now. And he's only 6 years old. But even at that, if I can position things in my life to make it easier for him later on in life, then that's as a parent, that's your job, that's your duty. That's just what it is. When you take on that role, when you take on that title, you take on the responsibilities and everything else that comes along with it.
Indeed.
And that includes all having a blueprint and a plan laid out for at least an idea of what you want for your child.
Now, I do think that when it comes to that, one of the things that is also, kind of a byproduct of that, and dealing with that, and a hardship to dealing with that, is the fact that we're dealing with a lot of situations where we are dealing with single parent homes, and we are dealing with, I don't want to say unplanned parentage, but unprepared parentage. And when you find yourself in a situation like that, I mean, again, it's mental, because the goal has to shift. Obviously you did not have the plan and preparation that you were looking for when it's like, okay, wow, I'm pregnant, this is what's going to happen or whatever. But there has to be a point where you're thinking about, okay, how do I get to here? I want to get to here. I want to get to this planning stage. I want to get to this part where I'm able to do this, and I'm able to set this thing up for my child. And it may not be in the first couple of years, because you have to get yourself right, and you have to get your own situation in order and all these other things. But there has to be kind of a shift in the mentality. And that's probably the biggest thing when it comes to parents, and what separates, the great ones from the not so great ones, the ones with opportunities, is it's not about you anymore. That's just the bottom line. It's not about you anymore. It's about your child. It's about your, what's going to happen with that child. That child did not ask to be here. That child was created by you without their consent. So what are we going to do? You now have a responsibility. You now have a goal in mind. And we have to change our mentality towards that.
Yes, sir. I mean, on the parenting topic, I want to end it with just saying this. I mean, I think overall, as a community, we have to stop failing one another, is what it comes down to. And that's within our household, and even when it comes to our extended families and our extended friends and such, we have to stop failing one another, because that's the key in parenting overall. I see it as, especially with my son personally, I don't want to fail you per se.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hope him growing up and seeing what the things that I'm laying out now and the things that I'm doing now and the groundwork I'm putting down, he gets to the point that he's like, I don't want to fail you, Dad. And that's the mentality that we have to build. And, you end up creating a whole nother cycle for anyone who comes behind them.
Exactly.
So I'll say, opening up on our next topic on the deal with Biden and Kamala Harris being named his vice president pick, just where personally, Mark, do you see the benefits in him picking her, one, as his vice president, and two, the effects you could see this having in the future on the nation and how we move forward progressively?
Well, I can tell you, just in the pick itself and his commitment to, picking a woman, and then picking a woman of color. Number one, it's a brilliant thing, because we do need to have this sort of inclusion that you have with a situation like that in order to move forward. The best thing about this is recognizing what the problems are, what the situations are, and then instead of just giving it the normal lip service that it's been given for generation after generation, being able to actually enact some action that heads in that direction. I like the fact that their relationship isn't just fake rosy. It had been contentious. She did hit him pretty hard during the primaries. He was surprised by it. It became a media thing. Being able to get past that is actually really good, because in order to actually create change and compromise, you're going to have to be able to do business. You're going to have to be able to work things out when you're ideologically opposed on certain topics and situations, and to be able to come up with compromise and be able to do business together after that. That is exactly what we need, because we're not a tribe of 330 million corporations. We are a nation, we're a country. And the bottom line is, from those of us who are the most nationalists on one side to those of us who are libertarian, conservative, progressive, moderate. The bottom line is we all have to be able to get something done business-wise together to be able to move the country forward. There are policies that will help some and hurt others. We have to be able to figure out a way to mitigate that kind of damage. There has to be a way that we can be able to help those who weren't helped in the last go around, to be able to stabilize them. We need to be able to help our poor. We need to be able to help our sick. We need to be able to help those enabled without it being such a compromise to those others that we disenfranchise them as well. There's a lot to be done there, and to be able to compromise and work together in governance is special. So I think that's a big deal, and having a pick like that definitely helps. I believe that it was, I watched their little press conference today. I heard both of their speeches, and what impressed me the most is that they didn't hide from any of the issues. They actually spoke on them head on, and they spoke of having plans for them. They spoke about justice reform. They spoke about racial tension. They didn't hide from it. They spoke about needing to actually have a legitimate plan on how you're going to deal with COVID-19 and how we actually move forward. It's not just about being anti this or going opposite of the current administration. It's about, we recognize this as a failing. How do we succeed? It's not a period, it's a comma. There's more behind it. And I'm glad that they were able to actually display that for people, that it's not just hey, we're, this guy is not good and we're going to do this, we're going to do it a different way. It's, what can we do for the people? There are people that are literally hurting right now, and I don't think people have a firm grasp, because of how small our world is now with the internet and all of our different things that we have going on in our lives, that we are not able to completely grasp how much people are hurting around us. And recognizing that and saying, we need to stop this train. It's going downhill right now with no brakes, and we need to stop this train. It wasn't a status quo speech. It wasn't a get back to normal speech. It was, there are things wrong and they need to be fixed speech. And that gives me some, it does give me some hope that you can get some things done and that we can actually move in a different direction, because it's a pretty safe bet that we're not going in a proper direction right now. It's not going that way for anybody. There are people protesting in the streets. There are people unemployed. There are people hurting. We have 166,000 people in the ground right now who weren't at the beginning of this year from this virus. There's much to be done. And, if we got a group out there who's actually willing to do some business next in order to get that done, I'm behind it, because I have children, I have grandchildren. We have to do better than this. And, these are not perfect picks. Granted, Biden's made some mistakes. He signed the crime bill. Kamala Harris is not perfect. She, has a really sketchy, prosecutorial record out there in California. But that being said, anybody that's done politics more than a single term has some dirt in their closet. They do. But can you get past that? Can you improve? And can you actually move things forward, hold yourselves to account, hold different things to account, and be able to get those things done? I heard a lot of good things today. So hopefully that isn't just lip service. It doesn't seem like it is, but even if they can't get all of it done, if they can get just a little bit of it done in the beginning and be able to help people and be able to stop some of this madness that's going on, then, that's a good thing.
I definitely agree on that end. And more and more, I find myself liking Biden as a candidate. And, I'm a very independent thinker. I don't pick anybody based off of what party you belong to. I don't pick you based off of anything other than what I think you can accomplish and what I think you can get done for the American people. And I think with paying more attention to Biden lately and just looking at his record, because more so than anything, this is the third time that Biden has ran for president. And for me, I wanted to really, my interest was your first time around, what was your ideology? What were some of the groundwork that you were running on and the policies that you were running on? And when you go back and look at Biden's 1988 run, I mean, the policies that he was running on now are things that we very much so need in today's society, basically. So, I mean, I definitely agree on that end. I think that him and Kamala Harris are a match made in heaven. I think she's one of the best picks that he could have made as far as keeping his word on one to the women and picking a woman as his vice president and paying it forward with, it being a black woman on top of that. So I think, that's one of the most excellent picks that he could have made. For me in the long run, what my still step backish approach from Biden and Kamala all the way is I want to see their policy laid out on paper, how they expect to get these things accomplished, and how it's going to be different from the traditional way that we've been doing things. And on top of that, I want to know that they're not going to move so forward into a uniformity system that I don't think Americans truly want. I think that there's to the left side, the more progressive side of the Democratic Party, you have the idea of uniformity and fitting situations based off of numbers, based off of stats, instead of humanitarianism. So I think at the same time with their policy, there has to be a sense of not going too far to the left into where we're going to a point that I do not agree America should go to. But with the confirmation of these few things, and I mean, I'm excited to see the debate between Biden and Trump, and I mean, I want to see what each has to say for themselves against each other, and I don't want it to become a situation where the typical American is like, I don't know who to vote for. You always have the saying, Mark, cyanide or cigarettes, and we don't want to be so much into that box to where we're looking at Biden as still a negative. So he's got to do something for the American people to appeal as better than cigarettes or cyanide. He's got to be something different that we have not seen yet from a politician. And that's really what it's gonna take for, I think, him to even win the office. And as they say, third time's a charm. So, we hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. What I do think, and this is vitally important for people as we go through these last 83, 84 days leading up to the election, we're going to hear some things from every candidate that don't necessarily ring all your bells. The concept of actual governance is a concept of compromise. There are going to be some policies that don't work for you and me. And there are going to be some policies that work for you and me that doesn't work for, someone living in a different neighborhood and living in a different tax bracket. There's going to be some things that we have to understand in order to deal with all the issues that we have right now. Because as they were laying it out in their speech, I mean, when you're talking about the virus itself, when you're talking about the economy, when you're talking about criminal justice, when you're talking about racial tension, when you're trying to deal with all of those situations at once, and the fact that we have, there isn't a single problem that's going to be solved with less money. It's going to require more money. How do we deal with all of this? There's going to be some compromise that's going to have to happen. So I hope everyone understands that, not everything is going to be rosy. Not everything is going to be easy and quick. And probably the most important thing that Joe Biden said, and actually, if I did not kind of already have the mentality that I had, this would have absolutely sold me, is that he called himself a transitional candidate. He himself said that he wanted to be the bridge between an old guard and a new guard. He knows he's if he wins and he gets sworn in, he's going to be 78 years old when he gets sworn in. So he knows that, we need new blood in here. We need fresh blood. We need more progressive blood. Could he go all the way, and go all the way to the progressive wing of the party? Probably not, because you're going to alienate too many. Could he go too moderate? No, because you're going to alienate too many. But as a bridge to head in a progressive direction, this is a good choice. And there are some progressive ideas that are on the table here. There are some things that help. Can we get to a point where we can, lock up healthcare as a general basic right in this country? Probably not yet. But can we improve what we have right now? Absolutely. And I think as long as people think about it like that and understand it, we do have to be vigilant. We have to listen. We have to understand what's going on. But when I give the analogy of having a choice between cigarettes and cyanide, what I mean by that is that I want everybody to understand that we are on the cyanide side of the fence. We are being poisoned from within. We're in a place where we have race relations that have not been this bad since the mid-'60s. That we have a virus going on that, like I said earlier, put over 160,000 people on the ground. That's 2 full football stadiums of people that are gone, and all of us walking around, any day could be your day when it comes to this virus. We have so much going on right now that the current way that we're going must not continue. That must be understood. Now, obviously, we've got to vet Biden. We have to vet Harris. We have to hear what they have to say. But we also need to make sure that, for those of us who are not a fan of what's going on right now, and those of us who fall into that 75% who don't believe the country's going in the right direction, we need to understand why. We need to understand our role in that and the complacency that we had 4 years ago and where that leads to. And we have to understand the situation right now. So, I did like what I heard today. I do need to hear more. But I think as a first step, it was definitely a good first step. And I think that we, have a reason for the first time in a long time to have an optimism, a cautious optimism about where things could end up.
And I think in our ending conclusion today, I think it's at a point where you're right. We need someone who's in between that moderate and progressive wing of the party. But as I said, earlier before, is just I think that Biden and Kamala, honestly, they're being handed an election on a silver platter. Now, what they do to lose votes is basically what it becomes at this point. So they have to bring in these topics. As I said earlier, they got to continue to be transparent with the people. They have to be transparent in every debate that they attend. They have to, if it's a policy that in the past they've gotten through in the Senate, or they've done with Kamala when she was the DA in California, if there was something that you did that you don't necessarily agree to now, or you've changed, stance on, you have to be transparent on that. And I think that's what the American people are going to be looking more so from them, is the transparency. And if they can continue to do that, I think that they have an election in the books, basically. But it's going to take that in the long run.
Absolutely.
And now, yes, sir. And then I just want to make one last announcement again this week. With the school drive, we've been doing pretty excellent with the organization, and I'm thankful for everybody that's sent in their donations and everybody that's helping us get this thing on the road and get it along. And basically, I believe we have right about now enough items for about 50 or so kids. So if there's anyone who would be willing to donate, I feel we would at least like to try to affect, 100 kids' lives, even if it's giving you a pack of paper or a pencil, and saying, good luck with school, continue, to strive with your education. That goes a long way with young kids as far as we may not always, pay attention and think about. But these are things that really move them, and it may change something, within the way that they look at school, just because they got a different, pen to use or a different pencil to use that they didn't have before. So it will be a huge help on that end, if people could continue to, help us and assist on that end to get supplies in for the kids. And the drive is actually, we had it set up to take place on August the 15th, but I believe because of weather issues, it would be uh, inconvenience for not just, the organization, but for the kids to really get out there and get the items themselves. So I believe we're going to wait till the following weekend to actually do the actual drive. So it's beneficial in the sense of it gives us time, if people feel led to get a couple more supplies in and help on that. And as I said, we want to affect as many kids' lives as we can. And further than that, a great meeting again today. And thanks everybody again. And until next week.
Take care.
Yes, sir.